Sandi and the lovely Sandi and Andrew are going to be answering questions. So I hope you've all submitted your questions to the ACHES table downstairs, and we're collecting up the questions. Anyone who hasn't submitted a question and you've still got one, write it down and we'll have a look. Hi. So anybody on the ACHES team, if you have the questions from the box, fantastic. We've got the questions, they're arriving post-haste. That's brilliant. And Amanda is here to read out the questions. Here we go. I can help you.
Just give me. Hi. We've got some fascinating questions, and I'm intrigued to see what our speakers are going to say, or how they're going to answer them. The first one is, Edward Snowden tried to inform us of a breach of digital privacy, which has become even more invasive. Informing more people is great, but what else can we do? How are you going to reach the younger generation? I'm 28 and I only came because of my mum, so well done, mum. I wish my 25, 28, 30-year-olds would just come in. So, I don't know if this is a question for us, our organisations generally. We might miss other things later, a little later, but I don't know if you've Sandi. Of course. So basically, I mean, it's in several parts actually. Edward Snowden tried to inform us of a breach of digital privacy, which has become more invasive. Informing more people is great, but what else can we do? That might be something for the ACHES team to answer. How are you going to reach the younger generation? It's a question, isn't it? How are we going to reach the younger generation, perhaps I should say?
The younger generation is a problem. They have had the full indoctrination in the schools for the last 3 decades, and also nearly half of them have been to university and had another dose of indoctrination. When I first spoke out and got, well, probably about 200,000 emails over a few months from around the world, it was amazing that the average age of the person who contacted me was probably in their late 50s or early 60s, and there were plenty of emails from 85-year-olds who could see what was going on. We're going to have to be patient with the young. They have had the full indoctrination, and they will be the last to wake up. And I think there's a wider message. We have to be gentle to an extent with those who have not woken up yet. It's a bit like I could drag someone to church and make them listen to a sermon, but I can't make them believe in God. And until the people are ready, all we can do is lay out the ground and the information for them, and in their own time, they will come. But in the meantime, we've got to act, because we're the ones who know what's going on, and we want to stop it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite positive about the youngsters. I've got my daughter-in-law is a teacher, and a lot of the children in her A-level class actually walked out of the PHS saying, sort of, it was the sex education class because they didn't agree with what the teacher was telling them, and all 32 walked out. TikTok is a fantastic place for the kids. And there's a lot of really positive things coming out of TikTok. So if we can just get as much as we can traction on all of that, the youngsters are making it.
So a couple of questions for Sandi. Sandi, you may have an If we're going to change the globalist agenda, we need a grassroots political movement. When is it coming?
Well, if you're believing all the polls, and it's not a positive vote for Keir Starmer or the Labour Party, it's actually people who are just not going to vote Conservative, given what the Conservative government has delivered over the last five years. When the public then realise that Keir Starmer's Labour is basically exactly the same as Rishi Sunak's you see, when Klaus Schwab and Bill Gates and the World Economic Forum, when they own all the horses in the race, they're not bothered whether the blue horse wins, the red horse wins, or the yellow horse wins. And when the people do realise this, what we've got to do is we've got to move to a system of direct democracy where Parliament has got a lot less powers. We get rid of the House of Lords, if they're used, and you're going to have the inconvenience of voting in referendums 3 or 4 times a year on lots of laws, and the people are going to be sovereign. You're going to decide what becomes the law, and it's going to be inconvenient, but it's not as inconvenient and as damaging as ever been the position where what's been perpetrated against the people can ever be done again. I'm not going to go through this. We're not going to have to win to let someone do this to the people again. So we're going to put it in place measures to stop that.
Another one, Sandi. Why have you not mentioned the Internet of Bodies and the drive to connect the human brain to the Internet while in Parliament?
She touched on it in the film.
The Internet of Bodies.
I've done enough on Listen, when people are only at phase 3, you can't take them to phase 10, can you? I've concentrated on the vaccine harm and the excess deaths because, as I said, no government around the world, they can paper over everything. We're in a situation now where it was in January, a poll in January, over half of Americans believed then that a large number of people have been killed by the vaccines. Now, we've got to push on that door. When people realise that they've been lied to about the vaccines and the pandemic and the lockdowns, people are waking up to the fact that net zero is the biggest financial hoax that's being perpetrated against the people, and it's all moving in the same way. It's all about control and monitoring and limiting your freedoms. And of course, the WHO have spoken out against that, and that is a key part of that command and control mechanism that they're looking to bring in with, the Director General of the WHO. So he's unelected, unaccountable, non-taxpaying, immune from prosecution due to diplomatic immunity. So there's no court. There's no court that you, me, or anyone else on the planet can go to and challenge anything that the Director General of the WHO says if they're given these powers. What could possibly go wrong? What do we need problems? So I think those 3 key issues are the ones I need to press on. Everything else will sort itself out. If we beat them on any of those, the House of Cards will win.
couple of questions that to me seem very similar, so forgive me if I read both, because I think that they kind of dovetail into one another. In May, the WHO will be given powers to rule us, in brackets, lockdowns, etc. Why don't the other MPs care enough to resist this? And then the other question, which possibly answers the other way, why exactly did so many MPs exit during your speeches? Dash bribery or coercion? Can you give a picture on this, if you know?
I think the reason, I think we've got to the bottom eventually of the reason that there are so few attendees at our speeches. They're just too busy sending photographs of their genitalia. You know when they say, it's a big club and you're not in it? I think you've got to be more careful of the sort of people you elect as your members of parliament. The MPs, they leave the chamber because they think that if they don't hear it didn't happen. And they don't want it to happen. They don't want to acknowledge the science. They don't want to have to listen to it because they can't argue with it. I think a lot of my colleagues are not vaccinated. I don't think any of them are. If you look at the figures on the freedom of information in New Zealand, New Zealand is a country with a population of 5 million. 11,000 of their political elite and the top of the civil service were given exemptions for the vaccines that they were pushing on the population. 11,000 in New Zealand, that came out. I'm double vaxxed myself and they hurt me. I guess it's a big club and I wasn't in it.
A question for Sandi. What made you realise there was a globalist agenda?
Is that what made me realise the agenda? There were a number of factors really. I was working in the corporate world and I was working, I come from theatre, which was great, but then I moved into corporate live events and I had to create a mini smart city in the early 2000s in Chelsea for Microsoft, and they flew Bill Gates in, and I met him, and this was so weird. I had to create this mini smart city in Chelsea, and I just woke up. I just suddenly saw what the future was going to be, and I began to sort of really dig in deep into it, and then about a year later, I was working for Google, and I joined a lot of dots working for Google and speaking to people like Eric Schmidt. And I just realised that a lot of the corporates were working towards this global sort of march towards technocracy. And I'd read about the technocracy movement, and I started just joining dots. And then I read Rosa Corey and an amazing lady called Vicky Rapana, who really blew the whistle on communitarianism and global communism. And I suddenly saw this enormous picture arising, and actually I wondered whether I was wrong in those days, and I realised it was to do with climate change, and it just went through. I woke up, I read Behind the Green Mask, I read Richmond by James Davenport, he was an early one, and I realised that there was massive agenda. And I've just been on it ever since, and very focused on it for some reason. That's it.
So, a question from Piers Corbyn. Do you agree the greenhouse effect is fake physics? And will you support a judicial review of London mayor elections and stop the election now?
Of course, the greenhouse effect does exist to an extent. But it's got very little to do with carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide's relationship to temperature increase is not linear, i.e. as the carbon dioxide level goes up, the temperatures will rise with it. It's logarithmic. So doubling the amount of carbon dioxide we've got in the atmosphere now, we'll probably have about 1% increase in the warming, 1%. So it won't double it. Very, very little. I just want to give you my Bill Gates story. I have actually met Bill Gates. I was introduced to him in David Cameron. David Cameron introduced poor Bill Gates and Melinda. He hadn't been to the island so much then as well. In 2012, and it sends us a chill through my heart. He said to the Parliamentary Conservative Party in 2012, in Committee Room 14, I got I'm working on some new vaccines. You're really gonna like them.
Oh.
And a question from Nicholas. You said you were not a conspiracy theorist. How do you define a conspiracy theorist?
That's a very good question. It seems that the conspiracy theorists are ornamental, and what the government and many in the establishment say are conspiracies turn out to be true. So maybe I am a conspiracy theorist.
And another question for Sandi. With house building quotas sky high and Labour wanting to build on green land even more, councils are feeling pressure to grant planning permission even as farmers are being paid by the government to stop farming and cashing on their land. It's a bit long, so I can read it again. How can we empower councils to say no to housing quotas that seek to create 20-minute neighbourhoods on our countryside? And what is really going on with this house building?
Yeah, I mean, I noticed this in Somerset. And, they call this, a green agenda, they're trying to save the planet. But what they're doing is they're building on the land that should be agriculture. And so the farmer, we as human beings are being attacked on all fronts because not only are they encouraging farmers not to farm and to give their land over to rewilding and herbal lays and putting renewables on their land. So in North Somerset, the land was pretty hideous, really, to went up to 2045 or something, and everywhere was renewable energy. It's either wind farms, photovoltaics, or housing, and there was nowhere to put the farming, nowhere to put livestock or arable. And this has been questioned about food security. A lot of I've certainly questioned my council about food security, and I know a number of other councils have, and we've got Rachel Matthews, Colchester Council, she's been amazing. And I think really the more we stand up to the planning, look at what your council are getting up to. There is Council Watch, join Council Watch, set up your own Council Watch. It's a fantastic movement, and it really has come, and people are now challenging their councils. And I would advise you, if you need any help, get to Rachel Matthews, Colchester Council Watch. She is an incredible sister in this whole thing. And we need to challenge our councils, look at what they're planning and oppose it. And that's what we can do.
This was a question, Nicholas. I think it would have been good to address Tess Laurie. Had a long journey to get back, so it's not here now, I don't know. But how to permanently remove the COVID vax from people?
That's an extremely important question, because these nanoparticulates are not just in the vaccines, they're in the chemtrails, which is now called geoengineering. And personally, I regularly detox myself. I've never been vaccinated. I never wore a mask. And it's possible we are going to put up in the next section, which we are going to move on, and maybe that's the last question because we've got to be out of order by 9:30, is that we are going to put up the names of 3 doctors, eminent doctors, medically qualified. So it's not me recommending it, it's medically qualified doctors, and we'll put their names up. We'll put the names up on the next presentation, which is going to be given by Catherine and Lisa. So if you look on there, you can see the names of the doctors, and then you'll be able to follow their particular protocols. Okay. And one last thing, I promised to mention the White Rose. They've got a new magazine, and I think copies of their magazine are down in the foyer. And they've been very supportive of our evening, and we would like to thank them. And I should have mentioned it before.
This person says, great conference, thank you. One issue not covered, and it is the premise for all of this, is the birth certificate fraud. Until individuals undo this, there will be no sovereignty and no resolution. This is more of a statement than a question, but it'd be interesting to know what our speakers think. This represents the return to the creator.
This is just my view. People have different views, and ACHES is keen to listen to everybody. But my view is that when the consciousness of humanity sees the agenda, all of these things will dissolve in their own way. And we don't need to bring out a revolution where we get guns and blow people's heads off. It's just awareness of the ludicrous nature of all these silly things that they propagate against humanity. When we could say that seeing is the doing. That's my view.
Oh, okay. That's all right. Before you give it to me.
I think that's all the questions we've got to open. Oh, one more. All right, one more. We've got 15 minutes. This winter, many rivers in the UK flooded. Somebody mentioned it. How is the UK government undertaking a non-dredging policy, and is there an agenda of making rural life so difficult that people have to live in digital 20-minute cities?
Yeah, I think, well, we've had this debate in the House of Commons for at least last 14 years, that the Environment Agency are completely opposed to clearing of rivers. They get blocked up and the rivers flood. They're not maintaining the waterways. And yeah, this year it's been particularly bad, but if you haven't cleaned the waterways out for 20 years, it's only ever going to get worse. And it's not just that. I mean, I had a children's home in northwest Leicestershire that was flooded out in January, and it's been flooded nearly twice since. And that's because the local county council weren't clearing the ditches properly in the culverts. And if they block, it runs down to the next one and it floods the orphanage out. I mean, it's exactly the same.
I mean, I was living in Somerset in 2014 when the Somerset levels flooded the last time. I mean, it's been pretty bad recently. But what was interesting is I met a journalist down when we were Sandi Adams, His name is Mr. Booker, amazing man. And he said to me, this is Agenda 21, I didn't realise it was this is 20, it must be 2014, I think. And I was, beginning to understand what was going on. And he said, look at Policy 6, and it was Environment Agency policy to allow the Somerset levels to flood under biodiversity. And it was Baroness Young who put that into place in 1997. And he made me look at Policy 6, and sure enough, that area was designated to flood in 1997. In 2014, it flooded, and it was to do with the Environment Agency had not maintained the reeds, and it was deliberate, and it was under Agenda 21, to literally destroy some of the land, to get people off the land.
Thank you so much. That's the end of the question time.
Thank you very much for having us.